was on Grayson's Chromebook.
Okay.
Did I tell you what he did in my Chromebook?
All right, I got it.
Take us off
got it?
Yeah.
with it like 2-0 because apparently they're in a war and he has 2 points and she has 0.
I was gonna be mad.
And he just did it backwards though, so it's like on the camera. Cut it out and take it to our Chromebook.
It's so extra. I can't.
2-0. She's like, you have the extra distance. You think I'm gonna take a picture, print it out, cut it, take it to my Chromebook.
Like he literally went and found
How'd you score yourself? Come on, this is where we gotta be. This is where truth comes into play. How'd you score yourself?
I gave myself a good old 4 because it seems I misunderstood the prompt and as such I wasn't able to answer it as effectively.
So you gave yourself a 4.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher end of the 3-4.
Yeah.
Okay. What'd you give yourself?
A 4.
Why?
Because I felt like I could have done a better job of analyzing instead of just summarizing what happened in the story.
Is that what you did?
I
And
felt
we'll
like I
we'll
did.
get there. We'll get there. Grace, what'd you give yourself?
a 4.
Wow. You guys are hard on yourself.
Well, like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
Well, just tell me the score. We'll get to explanations. Lily?
3.
Jeez. Looking for negatives to come out. It's up to -2. Ashley?
4.
9. What?
4.
4?
Yes.
4.
3.
3. Okay. What did you do? What happened?
I feel like I didn't go into depth. I didn't really explain.
What did you do? Like you're telling me what you didn't do. I want to know what you did do. Like that's
What I did do?
yeah. Like hey, here's what I did. Like you said, you felt like you summarized, right? And let's get the. Let me pull the prompt up here. So you felt like you just summarized the story?
Yeah, it was just like a brief explanation of what happened and that was it.
Brief explanation in regards to what? Did you just talk about the cruel things that happened in the story?
Kinda, yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Grace, what did you do?
I felt like when I was writing it, it's not that I had like minor problems, like some of the lower scores said, but I more just didn't go into, or I mean, I had like a very basic analysis. It wasn't very deep.
Basic, like when you say basic analysis, give me a specific, like give me a specific of what you did.
Like it was just scratching the surface and talking about some of the acts, like since I did 1984, like some of the acts of the party and how they affected it. It wasn't like really digging in, it was just kind of like scratching.
How they affected what though?
How they,
Can I look?
Yeah.
Do you mind? Can I read?
rely-
Do you mind? Can I just read a paragraph?
Sure. I
This is
guess.
hey, this is all for what? This is all for our benefit, right?
Right.
Okay. I was going to, due to the violent acts of the party, this cruelty exposes the corruption of the government. Period. The party discourages all people and actions which deviate from their desires of society. Those people are then punished in cruel and unusual ways, and not in any type of civil manner. Therefore, the cruelty of the party displays the corruption within their system by discouraging and punishing what today is considered to be basic. By discouraging and punishing what today is considered to be basic rights. This demonstrates the control and power the party holds, yet is unwilling to relinquish due to their corruptive nature and deeds.
Like it's just repetitive and
Yes.
it doesn't
Yeah.
go into depth.
That's how
Can I? Somebody else volunteer? Corey. So I'm going to look at, this is the first body paragraph. In this novel, cruelty came in the form of exile, and I'm sorry, you wrote on Frankenstein. In this novel, cruelty came in the form of exile or not belonging with society. Even though the monster was created in a lab, he still had emotions and longed to be considered a normal person. Only because of his looks, villagers were cruel to him by yelling at him, attacking him, and exiling him. This cruelty acts as the breaking point, causing the creation to be revealed as a monster. It was cruelty that really set the protagonist and antagonist apart. I'm jumpy now.
Mm-hmm.
And really up to this point, you're basically just, you're summarizing. You understand? And then of course it was cruelty that really set the protagonist, like Just because you throw protagonist and antagonist into your answer doesn't mean, oh, I'm analyzing. Oh, look at this, protagonist, antagonist, conflict theme, point of view, and symbolism. It also creates the conflict between the two foes as the monster, like, here's what you're doing, like, what you're doing is, between the two foes, the monster blames the doctor as the cause for his cruelty. You're making, and just what I talked about yesterday, what did I talk about yesterday when it comes to evidence? What can you not do?
You can't just say just because you have to,
That stool
you have to build the bridge.
symbolizes, what did I say yesterday? Tyranny. Bam, mic drop, walk out of the room. And the thing is, you may be right, but you've got to explain that connection and not just say it. Who else? Give me a volunteer. Come on. Sacrifice yourself. Now this is
a freak of nature.
it's what?
Freak of nature.
It's the Frankenstein of essays. We're just mashing it all together.
Oh, well, pretty nice.
One such literary work in which cruelty manifests as a social theme is In To Kill a Mockingbird. Book titles are underlined, by the way, when you write them.
Oh, good.
So,
By Harper Lee. In this literary work, Lee gives cruelty substance in the form of racism. So far, very type 1. Right? Type 1's what? It's just basic stuff. Form of racism. A massive theme throughout the book. This form of cruelty primarily functions to embody that theme as well as providing crucial plot elements necessary for the... And that sentence, listen, I'm going to read this. This form of cruelty primarily functions to embody that theme as well as providing crucial plot elements necessary for the story to transpire. You're saying stuff, but you're not saying anything. Like this theme, like when you say this form of cruelty primarily functions to embody that theme, what theme? What's my theme?
okay.
It's not just, hold on, it's not just cruelty, because you know from freshman year the theme is a human nature statement. You know this. Why? Because I taught it to you. And so when you say cruelty is a theme, no it's not, no it's not. Cruelty is the theme idea. What's the theme? It's more clear function by the theme as well as providing crucial plot elements. Like what?
Don't I think I go into detail on that.
Because of this cruelty, the reader is able to bear witness to the unfair trial of Tom Robinson, an African-American tried to, like here, an African-American tried to convict. I know who Tom Robinson is. I've read the book. Right? Despite overwhelming evidence that supports otherwise. Sometimes you guys, and I'm not saying you, but this is normally when this happens, it's like people try to write like they're writing like an IMDb entry. Like, hey, here's what this movie is about. It's a trying, it's a trial of racism, and it's a trying time for African Americans everywhere. And it's like you just need to voice over like trailers.
I wrote an IMDb sentence.
Yeah, you kind of did. Because like, think of this. Because of this cruelty, the reader is able to bear witness to the unfair trial of Tom Robinson, an African American tried and convicted of rape, despite overwhelming evidence that supports otherwise. Do you see that?
Yeah.
You think you're saying something, but you're not really saying, you're not really doing anything. Cruelty in this work also materializes as its own perpetrator. So now we've taken cruelty and we've personified it. Ewell, who was developed as a racist antagonist, Ewell's acts of racism, as a perpetrator, Ewell, who was developed as a racist antagonist, Ewell's acts of racism lead him to falsely accuse Robinson, revealing he has an antagonistic role and subsequently painting racism in a negative light. Racism is always in a negative light.
Yeah, but I mean, you could easily write, yeah, racism. Okay.
Racism is positive, guys.
We laugh and joke about this now. But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Lily, can I? May I?
Yeah. Very repetitive, and I don't like it. And I don't think I have a point.
1984. First body paragraph, does that work?
Yeah.
Orwell created a world completely dominated by fear and manipulation. His protagonist sees all of the wrongs within his country, the cruelty of always being watched, committing a crime just by thinking, forcing a political agenda on all citizens, forms the idea that they are being stripped of their natural freedoms. See, you're just like, you've gotten, that's the first half of the paragraph, and you've summarized. As a whole, this work needs this type of cruelty to shape an environment where Winston must attempt to stand against this oppression. So as a whole, this work needs this type of cruelty to shape an environment where Winston must attempt to stand against this oppression. It gives him motivation. So, in all honesty, that second part, you're starting, like, here's what the cruelty adds. And you're starting to get your fingernails a little bit dirty. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
But you need, it's like, let's start doing that at the beginning. This eventually became a victim of the government's torture. He endured all forms of cruel and unusual punishments. See summarization again. But this was important for Winston's character development. Okay, that's where now you're starting. Now that's a good, it's like, I'm going to start to go down that path, but I'm going down it very gingerly. Because it pulled away layers of his mind to reveal the main reason he began rebelling. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? No? The Crucible. Within the Crucible society, cruelty is used as a motivator to push citizens into confessing to witchcraft. The government within the story holds public hangings to further motivate the accused to confess. They do so by promising repentance to those who confess and death to those who refuse. Motivation is not the only function of cruelty within the play. It's all summary.
Yeah.
All summary, like you're talking about the Crucible is about. Although motivation is a prominent function, implementing fear is another function for cruelty that is seen in the Crucible. And play titles are also underlined.
Yeah.
The government uses the fear, being hanged to get the accused to confess and accuse other devil worshippers. In the play, Abigail, a selfish woman, accuses multiple people for her own self-pleasure. They are then forced to confess to be, like, this is a lot of summary. And that's something you got to be careful of, is that you're summarizing, you summarizing when you think you're not summarizing. Remember, we're all one big happy AP family.
Yes.
And we support each other. 84. In 1984, society's come under the dictatorship of the party, its head figure, Big Brother. See, right there, IMBD. In 1984, in a world where society has come under the dictatorship of the party, its head figure, Big Brother. The party has a certain way of life to follow, and if anyone goes against it, they are punished severely for it. This oppression of life gives rise to rebellious thoughts in many people throughout the book. Summary, right? Including the main protagonist, Winston. In essence, cruelty from the party keeps the story going. Okay. That keeps the story going part shows, okay, I'm starting, but when you say keeps the party going or keeps the story, what's that mean? What's that mean? Like, oh, this further drives the plot. That doesn't tell me anything. It tells me it further drives the plot, but I don't know what you mean by that. It helps to develop his character along with others. One acts, and so then you get into one such act of cruelty that creates character development, is the torturing of Winston near the end. This cruelty ends up revealing Winston's selfish side. So now what we're doing is we're trying to connect it to characterization. So a little bit better. But that first paragraph, a lot of something.
Straight summary, it really is.
Straight summary?
It really is.
Straight summary. Like,
Book report.
It really is.
what, and wait, we're getting, oh, I read Lord of the Flies. Acts of cruelty is a main theme in the novel since these acts are committed from the beginning. As soon as the book begins, cruelty begins by the degradation of people when selecting a leader of the group. The acts continue to go as far as the death of Piggy. Like even your beginning, wham! I'm going to go right to the end. Overall, when there is some situation that the group isn't sure what to do, acts of cruelty are committed. For example, like I don't know the thing is like I don't know why they're being so cruel. You're telling me they're being cruel, but I don't know. For example, when the group was trying to select a leader, now here's a for example. They started to degrade each person on why they shouldn't be the leader of the group. So now you've told me that they are cruel. You've given me an example, but we're still not where we need to be in regards to answering the prompt. Certain times, struggle people and animals were killed. In need of food, certain members of the group went on to kill animals for food. This shows just how desperate the group was for something to eat and just how far they would go to get what they need. In comparison to killing pigs, the acts of cruelty would be seen throughout the acts of killing people. A lot of stuff. Last one. Right? I think I got everybody, didn't I?
Well, Matthew, but he's not here.
You just
Oh, but he is. In essence and spirit. He's going to watch this video and go, no! Scarlet Letter. Hawthorne's main character, Hester, has shown cruelty through punishment by being made to wear the scarlet A. This is important to the novel because it shows in these times how society judged one another. This is important to the novel because it shows in these times how society judged one another. I'm not disagreeing, but it's almost like you're trying to make analysis like really easy, and it's not. Oh, this shows how society is racist. And it's not that easy. In fact, Hester, in a way, brought out her strength. And this is another thing, is I find like you're very, like you guys are jumpy. It shows this, and it also shows this, and it also shows this. My head's spinning. And this is where we need to talk about and work on structure and focus within a paragraph. And we're going to talk about this here a little bit more in detail. The minute is also burdened with cruelty, but Hawthorne allows it to be self-inflicted cruelty through guilt. This guilt was brought on by his affair with Hester, summary, which he does not claim. He saw Hester judged and punished by the sewing never. A lot of summary. You ready, Matthew? Sure. All right. He did the Scarlet Letter. The function of cruelty served to rectify the main character's sin that she committed. After committing adultery, the main character tried to hide it from her husband and from society. It was easy to hide it from her husband as they were not on the same continent. Ultimately, she was found out by society because she had gotten pregnant from the affair. Once society caught wind of this, they put her in jail and forced her to walk down the main street of their little town for all to see. They were seeking to humiliate her in front of the entire town, so she would be discouraged from ever doing that again. What do I hear?
Summary.
Okay. Now, am I trying to embarrass all of you?
No.
No. Here's the thing. I'm going to really just show you, because I had a feeling, you're all in the same boat. Okay? I'm going to High School Musical you here. We're all in this together. So, do you want to take a look and see how this should have been attacked?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at the prompt. Now I want you, because I want you to hold on to this, so I'm going to give you a paper clip. Actually, I'll hold on to it. You can just paper clip all this stuff together. Did you ever see like the before and after pictures, like with people in weight loss?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do.
This is
This is
our before picture.
your before picture. And we're going to come back in like late April, like right before the exam. And we're going to take a look.
What were we doing?
Boy.
Okay. So in literary works, cruelty often functions as a crucial motivator, as a crucial motivation or a major social or political factor. Select a novel, play, or epic poem in which acts of cruelty are important to the theme. Then write a well-developed essay analyzing how cruelty functions the work as a whole and what the cruelty reveals about the perpetrator and or victim. Okay. So on the surface, the first thing you're going to think, well, I have to focus on is what? Once you pick whatever it is that you're going to write on, whatever story, whatever book, whatever, what's the first thing you think you've got to focus on? Like, and this is where when we talk about the wording of the prompt, what do you think the main focus is? What's the main focus of the prompt? What's the main idea? What is it? No.
How it functions within the story.
The theme centered on cruelty.
Ooh.
Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. So really the focus of this is its theme. It's not so much, hey, here's all the cruel acts that the party did to Winston, or that the boys did to Piggy, or that they did to accused witches and during the Crucible. It's a theme. What's my theme statement? And we know because, one, I taught it to you years ago, but once again, we go back to our literary term sheet. And if I go all the way down to theme, it is the insight about human life that is revealed in a literary work. And we know that that theme, is it an idea? Is theme an idea?
No, it's a statement.
It's a full sentence
Yeah.
about human life. And so that's where, if I'm looking back here, whatever it is I've picked, now all these may have cruelty involved, but their theme centered on cruelty may be different. Like, for example, let's use Lord of the Flies. If you use Lord of the Flies, I could have a different theme statement because I'm dealing with cruelty done by children who don't always recognize and understand that what they're doing is, in fact, cruel, right? Because they're not that mentally mature. So I could have a theme statement formed around that idea when it comes to cruelty. You follow me? But if I'm picking the Crucible, or if I'm picking To Kill a Mockingbird, and maybe even the Crucible, the cruelty is shown. It's the idea that people, even though it's cruel, the actions are cruel that's going on through racism or through witchcraft. Like you think of the Crucible, they think they're doing the right thing. Because we want to keep the devil out of Salem. So the goal is good, the motivation, but they think what they're doing, they don't think it's cruel. At least on the surface. Underneath, they may be like, man, this is really bad what we're doing, but you know what, we're too far into it now. And so now you got a theme statement centered around perception of cruelty versus reality. And like with Mockingbird, that one could have a theme statement focusing on cruelty. Once again, them not recognizing what they're doing is cruel. It's just part of the social setting of what they believe in and their values when it comes to how they feel about African Americans. Is any of this making sense?
Yeah.
So your theme statement can be different, but understand that for this prompt, your focus is the theme statement based upon cruelty. So that's what you got to figure out.
So because we had the entire summarization debacle, do we want to like clarify the theme in our paper? Do we want to write in this book in which the theme can be described as this? Like, do we just want to say what the theme is?
I would say, are you trying to figure out like where to state the theme?
Like, do we want to assume that the readers already know what the theme of this book is, or do we want to like clarify?
You want to assume that the reader has read the book.
Maybe
Okay.
not, like,
Instead of now, to me, where do you think you'd first mention what the theme is?
In the thesis?
Yeah,
Because it's the prompt.
get it out there. You know, whatever writing best exemplifies the theme of blank, and of course that theme is going to involve the idea of cruelty. And that theme helps to enhance the story through whatever specific ideas you're going to be focusing on. Have I gotten everybody is everybody with me so far? I haven't lost anybody. And they give you some hints up here of what you could put into your theme when it comes to crucial motivation for like a specific character. Like I could look at the Crucible and say, people are oftentimes cruel to help make themselves feel better, or to help their own. I guess what's the word I'm looking for? They'll often act cruel to others to make themselves feel better for spiritual peace. Does that make any sense at all?
Kind of.
Like if I can act cruel, I may not see it as cruel. I may mask it by saying it's the right thing to do through God's word, through God's way, through whatever way, and I'll be able to get spiritual peace that way.
Oh, like the crusade.
Well, if you look at the Crucible, perfect example. Well, you know from reading the Crucible, there were people who really called people out for witches for all types of different reasons. Land, so there was greed involved. Revenge, right? You saw what Abigail did because she lust. So now you're dealing with, I'm going to act cruel, I'm going to show cruelty for a specific motivation. And people act cruel in order to satisfy their own selfish needs, right? Does that make better sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're giving you hints here, or a major social, To Kill a Mockingbird, that's a social aspect. We look at their racism as cruel. They don't. Or The Scarlet Letter. It's a social thing. Okay? So they're giving you hints here of what you could put in your theme statement. But once you've got it all figured out, then write a well-developed essay analyzing how cruelty functions in the work as a whole. And when they say cruelty, they're talking about this theme of cruelty. How is that seen? How does it function? And what cruelty reveals about the perpetrator and or victim. This wording, functions in the work as a whole. That does not mean, where is it? And here's the thing, this is the key word. If they just wanted to know where cruelty was, then they would use the word like exists, how cruelty exists in the work. But when they say function, when you think of the word function, what's that mean?
Like how it,
And don't even think of it literally now. Like if something does not function.
Like how it doesn't work or.
like it doesn't operate in the intended way.
Right. How cruelty functions in the work, how it works, and how this theme is going to work. And what cruelty reveals about the perpetrator and or victim. Now this part, we'll get to this in a second because this gives you a specific. But here, how cruelty functions in the work as a whole. And I would say, where is that theme seen and what does it bring out? You're also going to hear me talk a lot when it comes to this prompt about when they say how it functions in the work, what it does for the work. They're going to use very vague wording, and what they want you to do is say, if I don't have theme, then I don't have certain other things that make up the story. And I think we may have talked about this freshman year. Remember I said yesterday everything's done for a reason, right?
Right.
So if you've got, stories that have a theme and a conflict and characters and point of view, and they've got all these literary elements, what do they all do?
Enrich the story.
How? Are they by themselves? Are they on their own?
They all seem to like correlate together in a sense.
It's all about connecting. Like you're going to see me, we're going to talk about drawing arrows and making connections. To Kill a Mockingbird, since that's fresh. Is it safe to say that you could say the main theme statement of To Kill a Mockingbird is that people will often pass judgment on other people without proper justification?
Sounds good to me.
Well, I can make it sound good. So we understand what I mean?
With like Boo Radley and then with the
People will often pass judgment on others without proper reasoning.
Yeah.
And we see that with Boo Radley, right?
Right.
And we see that with Tom, don't we? And the racism is where, when it comes to the racism part, that's where we see with Tom. Okay? If I don't have that theme, And what a lot of students like to do, well, if you don't have a theme, then you don't have a story. Done. Mic drop, walk out of the room. No. If I don't have that theme, are conflicts affected? If I don't have a theme, are conflicts within the story affected? Or vice versa?
So if we like take out the events and the different things that happen in the story because of the theme.
If I don't have that theme of people judging others without proper justification, I don't have the conflicts. The conflicts are greatly either reduced or eliminated. Because I don't have the racism. And I don't have the judgment on Boo Radley based on hearsay and rumor. Major conflicts, minor conflicts. We don't have, is it safe to say that think of the Mrs. DuBose situation. Remember that one? She didn't really tolerate the kids very well, did she? No. Minor situation, but it's an example of that type. So if I don't have that theme, then I don't have these conflicts. If I don't have this theme, which character is probably the most extreme character that shows that conflict within the entire story?
Ewell.
Bob Ewell. If I don't have that theme and that character are attached at the hip. And and it works both ways. If I don't show Bob Ewell that way, my theme isn't as seen as, in a strong way. You follow me? Think of the symbolism revolving what a mockingbird does. Doesn't that symbol help to understand characterization? Because remember, what is a mockingbird? Why do we not shoot the mockingbird?
Because it can only create beautiful music. It doesn't bother anyone.
Right. Does Boo Radley bother anybody?
No.
Is he shot? When I mean shot, is he harmed? Not physically, but the rumors. You with me? People judge him. Is Tom Robinson a mockingbird? Is Atticus Finch a mockingbird? Doesn't he face harm when he decides to take on the case? You with me?
Yeah.
So now we've got symbolization that connects to characterization. Everything connects. And that's what, when we talk about, then write a well-developed essay analyzing how cruelty functions in the work as a whole. What does this theme do? What else does it bring out? What else does it help enhance when we talk about literary aspects that help to make a story great? Have I lost anybody so far? So if I'm writing this, I figure out what story, whether it's here or something up here, I figure out what the theme is, and I figure out, I don't have to connect it to every single element, but I should probably take the time to say, hey, this theme functions in the work because it helps to bring out this major conflict, or it helps to really show this type of character, or it really helps to show this symbol, or it really helps to enhance this type of point of view. Because another thing is when you look at the theme, like when I go back to Kill a Mockingbird, I may not understand that theme as fully as I do if not told in the point of view of Scout, who at the time I believe was an 8-year-old girl. If it's told through the eyes of an adult, I may not be able to see that theme as strongly. Does that make sense? And then they even give you, and what the cruelty reveals about the perpetrator and or victim. So now I'm taking this theme and I'm connecting it to what literary element? Character. Whether it be the person doing the cruelty or receiving it. So they give you a specific here. They won't always give you a specific. They may just end it here. Then write a well-developed essay analyzing how cruelty functions in the work as a whole. Or what it does to enhance the overall quality of the work. That's very vague wording that they want you to do something very specific with that. And that's where you've got to start making connections immediately. And that's where you've got to figure out your thesis statement. Hey, here's the theme that involves cruelty. In this story, the theme of this, and you got cruelty involved, helps the story function in regards to how it shows a major conflict and also how it specifically shows the victim of the crime within the story. Boom. Move on. And then you get right into whatever first aspect you're going to be dealing with. Have I lost anybody on this? questions.
So when we're in the planning, generally like, I don't wanna speak for everyone, but when I'm writing an essay, I like to have like this paragraph be this point, this paragraph be this point. For something like this, how do we wanna organize the points? Like we wanna make a paragraph for,
It's all based on what you come up with your thesis. Are you talking about this specific prompt?
yeah, for like
Okay.
this prompt as an example.
Well, you've already stated the theme in your thesis. You don't need to rehash that. Okay? Now when it comes to how many paragraphs, and it's all based upon this part right here. How many, when it says how cruelty functions in the work as a whole, how many things are you going to connect it with? You know you're already going to connect to characterization down here. What else are you going to connect it to? So if you're going to connect theme, that this theme helps to enhance this work as a whole by providing the main conflict, or helping to enhance the main conflict, or helping to enhance point of view, or helping to enhance symbolization, or a moral. Remember, theme and moral can work together, but they're not the same thing. So it all depends on how many things you want to list here. You follow me?
So,
Knowing that you've got characterization down here.
so those little mini analyses we just did, those could be like little paragraphs, like the points.
Like if I say that that this theme of cruelty helps to enhance the conflict and symbolization as well as the main perpetrator within the overall story.
Those could be
Boom, boom,
3
boom.
points.
Paragraph, paragraph, paragraph.
Alright,
All depending on what you do with those 3 points. Because now if you're going to get into summary, now you're back to square one. Now you immediately say, this major theme involving cruelty, or this, and I'm looking at the next topic sentence, this theme of whatever it is you've selected definitely helps to show the character of blank. Here's how. And that's where you get into your explanation. That's where you're now making that connection. And explaining why, if we don't have this theme, and if this character isn't shown this way, then this story is greatly changed or hindered, and it's not as high quality of a story. Got me?
yeah.
But you need to immediately get into your points, because we see right here that you're kind of writing without a purpose. You think you've got a purpose, but as you get into your writing, you're just kind of writing. Next thing you know, time's called, and you're looking at it and go, oh my God. What did I just do? What I want you to do, here's what you're going to do for tomorrow. Because we've written this, now you're going to leave these with me, paper clips, because we're not quite done with them yet. But we're also going to start getting into these tomorrow and start discussing. Now, I looked through these yesterday afternoon, okay, and looked and saw what people were able to get done and how, and things like that. This will be for a grade. I haven't figured out exactly how many points yet. I've jotted down notes for each person when it comes to how well this went for you. Because there were some times, like, we need to try to answer every single question. Even if you don't, take a stab at it. I want an effort as opposed to, oh, question mark. No, give it a shot. Okay? Or give me some more depth, especially with these back ones. And remember that we did have back ones to do. So there will be a score for this. Now, I won't give grades for these every single time. I think I told you guys last year that we shouldn't be worried about what you get points for and what you don't get points for. You just do because I tell you to do. Okay? So what you need to do for, and understand that I probably won't be able to put any grades into Infinite Campus for, because they're not set up yet. So I got my old-fashioned grading book. This, yeah. If you notice, this is set up in, I think it's 3 parts. Like you'll notice that there's like a Roman numeral 1, like right in 1984 there's that Roman numeral 1, right? I just want to focus on that part, that first part, which has I think like maybe 7 or 8 like chapters to it. Is that right? Can I look? What are we? 8. So that first part has 8 chapters to it, and we're going to start focusing on that tomorrow, which means we discuss, which means everybody talks. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through that part tonight, just that part 1, and I want you to clarify which ones you specifically want to talk about. We don't have to talk about all of them. Whether it's one that you feel just really needs to be discussed because it's a good question, or one that you're not quite sure that you understand, or one because of the literary aspect it's asking you about. But I want you to go through and just circle the number or put a star next to them. Here are the ones that I definitely want to talk about this part. Everybody got it? And so when you come in tomorrow, that's what we'll be dealing with.
Tomorrow's Saturday, it's still coming.
Sorry.
Oh, I was scared. I was like, I got drills.
I'm getting so excited. Monday.
Monday, okay. Got scared for a second.
Coming tomorrow.
So Monday.
I didn't even know that.
No, and I didn't either.
I really went up to.
And one other thing we're going to do is we're going to come back to this prompt, and I'm going to show you some examples I'm going to show you sample responses, good ones and bad ones, to this prompt that were done and actually scored. I think you would want to see that. And then obviously then compare it to your wonderful masterpiece that you provided today. One other thing as we're wrapping up. When you guys were doing the timed writing, I was poking around maybe to give you a little bit more guidance on what you should be note-taking on when it comes to 8 or when it comes to 451. And I borrowed it, not gonna lie. But I went ahead and I cut the paste and put it on a Google Doc. And this is like, okay, I'm gonna read again, what do I look for? And this talks about, and here we are, we're close reading. And so a guide to close reading at the AP and college level. And it gives you some hints and some things to look for that you can go through this, and it's posted up on Classroom. And they talk about the 4 levels of types of reading become progressive or complex. You can look for linguistic, you pay especially close attention to the surface linguistic elements of the text, that is to aspects of vocabulary, grammar, and syntax. Remember, everything's done for a reason. So if you go back and you look why, like there's a certain part, if I remember, in 451 where, I think if it's Captain Beatty talking about, like he's explaining how things changed or why things changed, and there's an explanatory paragraph where it's like all like one-word sentences.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I thought that was strange.
It was strange. Now see, that would be, okay, I'm going back and reading that a second time.
You gotta figure out.
Not so much but like ask, why is Bradbury doing that? What's the purpose of him having Beatty talk in that way or structure that writing in that way? There's a reason for it. It's that type of stuff when we talk about like syntax and structure and stuff like that. So linguistic, semantic, you review specific words in a passage at a deeper level in order to discern what information they yield up, what meanings they denote and connotate and connote. This level of reading is cognitive. Structural, relationships between words within the text. Cultural, this is kind of where we're getting into type 3. You note the relationship of any elements of the text to things outside of it. Especially now that you've read it once and you know what you're getting into. We talk about level 3 when it comes to kind of a global perspective. And then kind of a quick list when it comes to what, if you notice things specifically with grammar, vocabulary, figures of speech. So these are all things you can look for. I went ahead and put this on Classroom for you to use as a guide. Instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to read this book again, I'm supposed to take notes. What am I supposed to look for? Like I can tell you right now, you'll notice early in the book that Bradbury uses a lot of like simile metaphor type of stuff. Like when he explains, when Guy is explaining what Clarice looks like, or explaining what Mildred looks like when he first when he first walks into the bedroom, there's personification used. So it's all about why, identifying them and why. And also, when you do that, make sure you're jotting down page numbers of things. Because you often have the newer version, right? Like the one that Ryan's got.
Yeah.
Okay, because those are the newest ones we got. So that's not something to wait on until the last minute, okay? But for Monday, have those, have your questions from part 1 of 84 figured out. Because we'll start, we won't take the whole 2 hours to discuss, because I think it's a little bit too long just to sit and discuss questions, but we'll take part of the time, and then we'll probably take the other time to look at sample responses from that prompt. Does that sound good? Okay, questions, comments, concerns? Remember the sign-off sheets need to be back. Okay, by Wednesday of next week. Make sure if anybody's got any questions from, like mom or dad or anything, to let me know. Everybody good? Let me shove off my camera here. Everybody was fair game, right though? And what are we doing in here?
Learning.
Are we condemning? Are we condemning? Are we judging? No. We're supporting, right? We're very supportive. It's almost like we're a support group, which sounds really bad. It's like Lily standing. My name is Lily. Hi, Lily. And I chronically summarize. Oh. So as you're looking for these things, and it's not just what they are, it's not just identifying, hey, look, I told you that in the first part of 451, if you pay close attention, what are you going to find? What does Bradbury litter that with? Think back to Friday.
Like syntax, your
Similes and metaphors.
Figurative language.
yeah.
And it's not just identifying those. That's great. You can identify those till the cows come home. Okay, that's level 1. That's a type 1 question, or that's type 1 information. Type 2 is what's the purpose of it? If you talk about maybe how pale Clarice looked or how pale Mildred looked, and they use a specific simile or metaphor. Why use that? Remember, everything's done for a reason. Why use that instead of saying, hey, you know what, she's really pale? And if you just say, well, it provides imagery, mic drop. That's not a very good mic drop. We've got to get away from those, what we think, when it comes to our analysis, when we think we are interpreting, and we're really not. Well, that's more imagery. How? Oh. Well, I didn't expect to have to answer that. Or it adds more to the plot of the story. How? Oh. Or it enhances the overall quality of the story. That sounds really smart, but you're not really saying anything. So, you're still active on her classroom. I know she's got stuff that she gave you last year that's on that classroom you can go back and look at. I'm just saying that she's giving them the talk today about note-taking that you guys should have already learned. And she did say that when you guys did Scarlet Letter, things were better, right? So now that you're going back and you're rereading, I should be starting to see, now it's not all going to be perfect, but I should really start to see the attempt of type 2, type 3, those type of insights. Are we good? Everybody understand that? Okay. I see people with sheets. Do we have sheets? Does anyone want to give me their sheets, taking them out of their hands? Do you have both? Both? Yeah? Anybody else? Or we said Wednesday with this, which reminds me, I gotta tell you something about Wednesday. I don't need the whole thing. That's you. I just want the sheet. He ripped that off with a sense of, yeah, or disdain. Strong. Let me give you your one sheet. Take that. Wednesday, I'm going to actually be having both AP classes.
Like them?
No, stats.
You never know.
Because I'm just that
Oh my
good.
gosh, I'm having like
4
fun
hours of
doing
Mr. Ruggles.
AP session. It's not fun.
No, he's gonna walk over there, teach them, and then walk over here and teach us.
The one thing we will do,
That's my-
once the school year starts, remember how my group came and talked to you about poetry? You will do that. We will plan that. Well, maybe, I don't know, if the hours, see, last year the hours meshed, I don't know the hours mesh. I'll have to see. I know Mrs. Crippen has to go, is it Claire? That's going to school?
Yeah.
She has to go help Claire move in. She has to be a parent. Which is,
Okay, I guess.
huh?
It's okay, I
I
guess.
guess. Go ahead. This was once. And we're all gonna fit into one room. She's gonna have them take, like, timed pre-stuff,
Oh, I-
okay? We're gonna do the same thing. Like multiple choice, we'll do a multiple choice timed. Okay? Just to give you an idea. I don't know what. And then I maybe would throw, because we've already done an open response, which was the one that we did last week. I'll probably throw a poetry one at you. Kids usually get most freaked out by the poetry. But that's what's gonna happen on Wednesday, just so you know. So I'll have everybody together and we'll be a timed writing, testing. I'll be a fool. Okay, any questions on that? No? You guys have your questions, right? Okay. I asked you, did everybody pick out stuff like I asked? Oh, es verdad. Español, la clase de inglés. Muy bien. Does anybody like that new, what's the new hot song?
Despacito?
Yes, love it. Or are we over it?
No, I'm still on it.
My kids love it.
Overplayed.
It always comes on the radio.
So
and on the-
when I sing it in the car with the kids, I remember when I took Spanish 1, when I first learned Spanish 1, we had there was a passage that we did, and it was, hola, me llamo Luisa Sanchez, which is, hi, my name is Luisa Sanchez. Y soy de Venezuela, which means I'm from Venezuela. Me gusta el tenis, which means I like tennis. Y, and, me gusta esquiar, which means I like to ski. So me gusta el tenis y me gusta esquiar, pero no me gusta, no. Me gusta el tenis y me gusta esquiar y pero no me gusta el baloncesto, or something like that. But I don't like basketball.
That's like one of my learned all three.
Yeah, I really
It's
would.
what?
That's
That's
like
like more than I learned in all three years of Spanish.
I can ask.
So that was something that was ingrained in us, like we would listen to it on audio cassette, and we'd learn that. So I sing that. Those are my lyrics to that song. And then when I run out, then I just start, and I sing loudly, and I start to say all these different things at Mexican restaurants you can order.
Have you seen the video where it translates the whole thing?
No, because that would take all the fun out of it.
Yeah, you don't know what you probably don't know what it translates.
Oh, no? Is it inappropriate?
Kinda.
Oh.
Senorita wouldn't translate.
So maybe my 10-year-old shouldn't be singing that?
Yeah, Senior told me I played it, and then she's like, I can't play it.
Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that number 1 is one that we want to talk about. Yes?
Yes.
How many people had number 1? Identified number 1. Okay? All right. Why do we identify? Hello? Why?
See, so, I'm pretty sure when everyone read the first sentence, it just kind of okay, it's just once upon a time kind of deal. But when we saw the question, it's effective juxtaposition. What is this sentence even supposed to
Did anybody, when you read this, go and look up juxtaposition? Okay, do you remember what it means? Ashley? No? No, that was a long time ago.
It's like putting two opposite things next to each other to contrast them.
Well, for a specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You got two contrasting things put together for a specific purpose. So if you go back, and I'm telling you, and keep in mind, since we've got semester exams, if I'm you, I'm keeping track of all these things that we talk about when it comes to literary element wise. And we're looking at, because juxtaposition is not a common, theme's common, conflict is common, right? Point of view is common, characterization is common. All these things are common. We are going to go with we're going to go more in depth with those more in depth literary elements. And here we've got juxtaposition, which is poetic and rhetorical device, in which normally unassociated ideas, words, or phrases are placed next to one another, creating an effect of surprise and wit. And they even give you some examples. The apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough, and you've got these, especially here, these two very positive. Here we've got very negative, and we're going to be using them together. And we even see when it comes to informational text from Martin Luther King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, which I believe is from what speech?
I have a dream.
That's I have a dream. Okay? So we're dealing here and here. When we talk about connecting, I want to take this a step further just to show you how common this may be before you even get to the answer to the question. We talk about making connections. I'm going to show you a movie clip. You ready? Ready? Okay. How many people seen Jaws? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people?
Really?
That's it? That's sad. I'm going to show you the opening. I want to show you the opening, and I want you to explain to me the juxtaposition that's used. Okay? And here we're looking at normally unassociated ideas, words or phrases are placed next to one another. Just to show you that when we got this concept, it's used more often than what we think. Thank you. Hopefully okay. See, this is going to make you want to watch the movie. Keep in mind this is 70s. The fashions and hairstyles will show. That's a boy, by the way. And that's a girl. where's the juxtaposition?
Beginning, well, first one was had the title card where it was underwater and it was really menacing music, and then suddenly it's just a bunch of people on the beach having a great time.
Okay, you're telling me what happened.
It's the juxtaposition is you go from the really menacing sounding music, and then you immediately like get the mood whiplash from incredibly menacing to just having fun on the beach.
Okay, so like from here to here,
Yeah.
or to here. Where else? Two contrasting things done for a specific purpose. Nobody else got anything for me? Is this hard?
It's not hard to identify, it's hard to explain why.
Yeah.
'Cause
Okay, so let's identify.
Well, another one was when, I don't know what his name is, the guy was laying on the beach and he was drunk, and then the girl was out there getting eaten by the shark, and it kept flashing back and forth.
Okay. Okay, that's true. Can you think of any other juxtaposition that we see? And right now, understand, right now, we're just, what kind of question are we doing?
Level 1.
We're
trying
type
to
1.
identify.
We're just trying to identify.
No.
Think setting.
Well, what I noticed is that since I have a party on the beach, making it more relatable, because during the 70s, it's probably something people usually did. So they're like, all right, this is like something that could actually happen. And then what makes it more terrifying is that girl just went into the water just to swim and she got attacked. So,
Okay.
positive to negative.
Positive to negative. When she first went out, calm, serene. I think, what other adjective could you attribute to that setting? Peaceful? Relaxing? And that changed, right? Quickly. So what's the effect? Let's slowly dip our toe into the level 2 water. What's the effect? Which is what we'll get to with our question. What's the effect? Of all these little instances, what's the purpose?
Well, to me, it makes it feel like having, like, if we go from the peaceful to the getting eaten by a shark mood.
Mood?
Like, if we look at that example of juxtaposition, it kind of, to me, it gives me like the effect of, like, you have this fairly normal situation, and then the juxtaposition makes you realize how quickly things could go wrong, or how quickly things could change in a real life setting.
Okay. We talked about mood and tone. I think this is a good time to understand that there's a difference between those two words. Notice we have mood, an atmosphere created by a writer's diction and the details selected. So mood is in the hands of the reader or the writer. The writer, right? Like, hey, I'm writing the story. This is my intended mood. This is what I hope to bring across. Tone. The attitude a writer takes toward the subject of work, the characters in it, or the audience revealed through diction, figure of language, and the organization. And who takes, we're still dealing with the writer, aren't we? The attitude a writer takes towards the subject of a work, the characters in it, or the audience revealed through diction, figure of language, or organization. As opposed to mood. An atmosphere created by a writer's diction and the details selected. We're both dealing with a writer, aren't we? So are they interchangeable?
No.
You don't think so?
Because if tone is something more like what the writer has in his or her head, like an opinion on something, or a thought or attitude, and the mood is kind of like specifically in the work.
An atmosphere created by a writer's diction and details selected. Tone is what the author intends. Mood is on us. Do you understand this? What does the writer want to happen? Does he want his tone to match our mood?
I think so.
You want a scary story, right? I'm trying to write a scary story. Do I want you scared?
Yeah.
I want you scared. How many times you walked out of a movie that's supposed to be scary and you didn't think it was scary? Have you ever done that? Lily, no? You don't do scary movies.
I don't do scary.
Okay, so Lily's checked out of that example. Or something that was supposed to be funny but wasn't funny. You with me? Something, and you're like, oh God, that wasn't funny. Guess what? The tone and the mood don't match. And so this is hopefully, it's almost like you should have had an atmosphere that is hopefully created by a writer's diction and the details selected that is felt by the recipient. So make sure that you're careful when it comes to tone and mood because they're two different things. Kind of like moral and theme that we had to talk about years ago. But if we go back to that opening scene, what's my tone? What's the screenwriter's or director's intended tone? What are they trying to accomplish? You guys are making this so hard, and it's not that hard. Jaws is supposed to be what?
Oh, it's scary.
It's a scary movie. So the tone, I'm supposed to set up scary, I'm supposed to scare you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does that opening scene do a pretty good job? Do you think the tone matches the mood? Especially for you guys who haven't seen it, was that kind of scary?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what he's going to do is, I'm going to use juxtaposition to help with this. Actually, I should probably draw my arrows the opposite way. But we're going at it from the goal and then building. So if I go juxtaposition, and then I'm going to incorporate characters, I'm going to incorporate setting. And what I've got is I've got these opposites that help to set up the negative tone of fear that I'm trying to establish. You mentioned the back and forth, right? What's so scary about that?
Because when they like switch back, you don't know what's happening. You're like waiting for it to switch back, and it's like the build up of it. Because you like see him, and then you don't know when you go back what's gonna be happening.
Well, you want to go there, don't you? Like you want to get there to level 2. We're trying.
Kind of, in this specific example, it kind of leaves the viewer with like a sense of isolation, because you see she's in the water getting eaten by a shark, and then when it does the switchback, you see the guy passed out on the beach, like no one's gonna help her, she's out there alone. You kind of feel that.
So that now we've got you bring in isolation to it. The back and forth, she's out there getting chewed on, and he's just laying on the beach, safe, drunk, right? Safe, relaxed, everything she thought she was going to have out in the water. And it also shows how close she is to what? Safety. And you've got a whole 180 when in regards of situations. So you've got a complete 180 in regards to the severity of situations, but physically they're not that far apart. To be that close to safety and not be able to get there, you know what that does? That juxtaposition adds to my fear. Does any of that make sense? Because she's out there getting chewed on, and she is so close to safety. And that's why they keep flashing back to him. Just say, hey, you know what? He's right over here, safe, resting, passed out. And then, of course, within the confines of, like you said, the party. And we've got these characters who are carefree and happy. And we mix that with that very negative situation. And how quickly the setting of the, like she goes out in the water, even shows like she kind of dives her legs up the air, everything's quiet, peaceful. And then within the juxtaposition, now we're going to take a negative thing into that, but put it into that environment. So now that environment, two contrasting things, so now the environment changes. To where it's not peaceful, it's not relaxing, it's dangerous and deadly and fatal. Right? Is any of this making sense? So like you watch an opening scene like that, it's not, it's what's the purpose of doing that?
It's setting up the conflict.
Well, you could say it's all trying to set that initial stage of fear in you. Because I want your mood to match my tone. Right?
Yeah.
Right off the bat. That clip does a very good job, I think, of showing how that juxtaposition works. And of course I use my movies because that's what we like to go watch. There was another shark movie that came out last summer.
Shallows?
Yeah, did you go see it? Oh, you didn't like scary movies.
The kid I babysat loves scary movies, so I could watch it with him.
Now see, they were very, this one is very, this is just the opening.
That's the entire movie.
That's the entire movie. And they're very black and white about it. This one's not, this one's a little bit more sneaky with the back and forth. That's because she wasn't very far from shore the entire movie. And it's right there and you see it. And that makes you even more frustrated for her as she's stranded on this buoy and the shark is circling her. And she's like...
She keeps telling people how far she is from
because they want, because it's a reminder to the audience. You're that far away from safety. And so they were very black and white about it. But it's still that juxtaposition. Because I want to make sure that you have this fear, and I'm going to use that setting. So notice, we've taken 3 literary elements and tied them together. Okay? I'm not going to get my best tone if I don't use this, and if I don't use this using these 2 things. So when we talk about drawing arrows and making connections, this is what I'm talking about. Questions? Confusions, right?
Things like juxtaposition be used to contribute to other factors other than tone?
Sure. I can use juxtaposition to maybe clarify a conflict. Okay? Especially if I'm dealing with 2 characters who seem like they're being positive with each other or seem like they have a positive relationship, but underneath, maybe because of tone of voice, stuff like that, you really get the idea that they don't. Does that make sense? So I can use that to establish characters, I can use it to establish theme, I can use it to establish a conflict. So it's more than just tone. It's just, tone's pretty easy to do. Like, take a look at that very first question. And notice, I want to highlight one of the ways to get better at type 2 type of questioning and dealing with it is to understand the wording of type 2 questions. And this one says, what's the effect of the juxtaposition at the beginning of the section? Not what it is, it's what's the key word? Effect. So it's what's the effect. So how would you answer that? First of all, let's type 1 that. And tell me what juxtaposition we're talking about.
It was a bright, cold day in April.
Okay? So you're going off of the, I need my book, I need a book. You're going on, is that the very first sentence?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the, at least what I thought it was you have bright versus cold, which if you think about it, normally bright would go something like bright and sunny, bright and warm, but instead it's put with cold, which when you think bright and cold, they don't necessarily go together, so they're kind of contradictory.
Okay. It was a bright, cold day, but what's the effect? You're identifying. What's the effect? Is it a hint? Are we doing a little foreshadowing here? Like, seriously, with just 2 small pieces of diction, and notice all the literary term dropping I'm doing right now. Diction and foreshadowing. It was a bright, cold day in April. In reality, can you have, I mean, think about where we live. Can we have bright, cold days in April?
Yes, all the time.
Where could Orwell be giving us a little hint? What's the diction?
It's like,
What's the diction used? Is it bright? Is that the hint?
I think it might be cold.
Yeah. Think about, as you've read the book. Is this society cold? Heartless? Emotionless? Yes. So even though on the surface, yes, it's a bright, cold day, it's cold in more ways than one. Now that's pretty picky, isn't it? And the effect, okay, so what's the effect of that juxtaposition? It's that author saying, hey, just a little bit of a heads up. That yes, it's literally bright and cold, but it's cold in more ways than one. Give me some other stuff. How did you answer this? What other juxtaposition do we have?
The other one I found was on the page 2. I thought it was outside, even through the shut window pane, the world was cold. Like you didn't have to see the world to know it was cold. That's why. Because it just said at the beginning of the section, so I figured it was
Outside, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. Okay, now we're going back to what's the key word? What's the key word? Cold. Cold. But where's the juxtaposition? Where's the contrast? Like I get yours, bright and cold together. But where's the juxtaposition?
I read it, I was like, well, how is he looking through a shut window pane? So.
A window.
It's a window! It's a pane of glass!
That's just shut. Couldn't see it through it.
Oh my goodness.
How did the rest of you answer this? Come on. I shouldn't have to be pulling out of you.
I thought it kind of sets up the setting. It's like the bit of imagery kind of gave me the mental idea. Like I thought it was like a bright cold day here, like if it's like mid-January and like it's all sunny and everything, but it's like -20 and everything just feels like it sucks. It kind of gives me the impression here that in Oceania everything sucks.
Okay. Can I do some reading?
Yeah.
Are we okay with that? Winston, and this is the very second sentence. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions. Why did I stop there?
Because it's not nice in there. It's Victory Mansions. They explain it in the second paragraph. It smells like boiled cabbage and old rags.
Does the title match the reality?
No.
No. What's the effect? And it goes on, like you said. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. At one end of it, a colored poster, too large for indoor display, had been tacked to the wall. It depicted simply an enormous face, more than a meter wide, the face of a man of about 45 with a heavy black mustache and ruggedly handsome features. Heavy black mustache. Who does that sound like?
Hitler.
A little bit. Not Mario, that's for sure. Is that a Mario Kart poster? Did they have that back then? Keep in mind, we talk about time period in which this is written, okay? Because if you're going to make a singular figure look like a dictator during this time period, what's your model? Who's your model? It's Hitler. I'm not gonna be blonde hair and tall and no.
I'm more interpreted as like Stalin. The whole time doing this,
Okay.
like it's like communist Russia.
So yes, it's titled Victory Mansions. So you've got this positive wording, but what's the reality? It's not very positive. What's the effect of the juxtaposition? What's the effect of this type of juxtaposition?
Yeah, it gives you a little look into what the party is like.
Which is what?
They say everything's great, but it's actually not so.
They say everything's great, but it's actually not. So now we're getting into, keep in mind, we're always making our connections, right? So I'm going to use this diction, specifically with juxtaposition, to help show setting. Where here we were showing tone, now I'm using juxtaposition. Now I'm using juxtaposition and dropping my check to show setting. Everybody get that? And I'm using, and it's not so much, when we say setting, it's not so much I'm trying to show you physical setting, because that's part of what they're doing. It's really, what are they trying to show you?
Their society.
Which is called what? I know we talked about this freshman year. Don't tell me this freshman year.
Dystopia. Oh, social setting.
Social setting. How they are as people, what they believe in, what they value, what they practice. So right off the bat, you're like, geez, that doesn't sound very victory-ish, does it? No. And so the effect of that juxtaposition is just to show you exactly what this is like. And guess what? Is it good? No! Talking about the lift. Best times was seldom working, and the present electric current was cut off during daylight hours as part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. There's no juxtaposition used there, is there? It's not like Hate Week is positive. The flight was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39, had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, poster with the enormous figure gazed from the wall. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you when you move. Big Brother's watching you, the caption beneath it ran. Inside the flat, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures which had something to do with the production of pig iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plaque like a dulled mirror which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. What are we talking about? What's Orwell introducing?
The telescreen?
It's introducing the telescreen. And notice, what kind of voice do we have?
A fruity voice.
It's a fruity voice. Juxtaposition?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be really positive, but I'm going to be really positive and tell you and tell you about things that are really sucky. But I'm going to tell you in a positive way, but you're going to make it sound like, hey, it's really not that bad. He moved over to the window, a smallish, frail figure, the meagerness of his body greatly emphasized by the blue overalls, which were the uniform of the party. So you've got this blue color on such a frail body. Okay, are we seeing this at all? Are we seeing this and understanding this?
Mm-hmm.
And so there you've got, and keep in mind, change whatever it is you need to change on your answers. But that's what we're talking about when we're talking about juxtaposition at the beginning of this section. And the effect of it. Social setting. Okay. I want to go with number one. Where do you guys want to go after that? Come on, what do you want to talk about?
I marked down number 2.
Oh, we're going to go really far away. What is the effect of the anaphora in this sentence? You had to live, did live, from habit that became instinct. And the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and except in darkness, every movement scrutinized. Did anybody else mark down number 2 that they want to talk about? Or just Corey? Okay, why? Okay, how'd you answer number 2? What is, by the way, what is an anaphora?
It's a repetition of like word or phrase or clause.
Why?
Normally to like emphasize a point or clarify something.
So if we look at anaphora, repetition of a word, phrase, or clause at the beginning of 2 or more sentences in a row. And it's a deliberate form of repetition, helps the writer's point more coherent. Okay, so what's the effect? Oops, what's the effect? What's the effect of what we have in this particular passage? What's the effect of it?
It seems like, when it lists off the, different, ways that you live, like, that you did live from habit and all this became instinct, the repetition kinda hammers that into you, it's like,
Dot, dot, dot. Like what? Well, let's take a step back. What is the repetition? Let's go type 1. What's the repetition?
The only thing I saw was like the libs. That's when I marked down and I said like can't find any foreign clauses.
Every sound and every movement.
There you go. And really, what's the key word?
every,
Every. What's the effect of that?
it's all encompassing. It makes, like, no matter what you do, everything, absolutely everything is watched,
Potentially.
potentially.
We learn that later, right? It's the idea of potential, isn't it? Do they really know whether they're being watched or listened to in any, but it's always the potential.
Would this create a child of fear then, like you're always being watched?
It could. And see, now you're starting to, let's make connections, okay? Follow me on this. I'm going to use the anaphora of every to show you that there are no exceptions, right? No exceptions. Now, what are we describing here? What does this help to define?
Basically everything that you physically do.
Which helps to further define what?
Their life.
We're back to social setting now, aren't we? Okay, so notice that I've used diction, specifically anaphora, to help explain social setting. That helps to set that tone of, I don't know if you want to call it fear, maybe that tone of conformity, maybe that's helping to be established, but I've gone diction, anaphora, social setting to tone. Boom, 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 all connecting. Does that make sense? Just with every. And that's not uncommon. Like, have you ever busted somebody for saying, like, well, you do that every time? You ever done that? You do that every time. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't do it every time. Because you draw that out, you pull that out. And so that's when it comes, what is the effect? Not only to define, but it's to help to really define the social setting, which then you could then take to a tone thing if you want to. Or a theme thing. Or a potential, now I've got an idea of I'm starting to get a vibe of a potential conflict. Notice how many different ways you can go with this. Questions? I know, it's exciting, isn't it? It's thrilling. Stay with me. Ashley?
When explaining like the effect of it, do you have to include everything, or if you just include like one, like just say the tone or the setting and everything?
I think if you try to do everything, your head's going to spin. It's going to fly off your body. I think an answer to this one would be, in all honesty, the purpose of this specific anaphora is to really highlight what this society is all about. That they're watching people, and that this is a conformist society. And so really, if you just make that anaphora to social setting connection, but what we're talking about is how you could still extend it if you wanted to. But you don't want to extend it so far to where all of a sudden now your connections start to get a little bit harder to not so much understand, but a little bit harder to grasp in regards to their validity. Remember, we want to make sure if we go from here to here, all the way over here, what do we want to do? We got to build that bridge, don't we? And we want to make sure that that bridge is strong. The longer the bridge, maybe the more rickety it becomes. But you can still do it. Okay? Give me another one, then we'll take a break. Number 5. What is ironic? So now we're dealing with irony, which is more of a standard about the statement that nothing was illegal since there were no longer any laws. Why'd you pick that one?
Well, because I didn't really dig very, I was having problems digging really deep with the analysis because I knew that, like, I mean, technically there aren't any laws, but at the same time, there are a lot of laws and rules because people have so many limitations on what they're actually allowed to do. And if they go against, like, what the government wants or like the government's kind of goals in mind, then, like, they're, like, very harshly punished.
If I just take the first part of this, nothing was illegal, there'd be a lot of people who would say, what?
That's not true.
That's not true.
Well,
Disagree.
a lot of people would be happy about that. Right?
Yeah.
Well, like initially, when you read it, you're like, okay, no one gets in trouble, it's a peaceful community, everything's good. You have the story the whole time, you're seeing people are...
But here's the thing, when I say nothing was illegal, you automatically think, okay, then no one gets in trouble. You don't think of the opposite, that if nothing was illegal,
Everything's okay.
or everything is not okay. Nothing was illegal since there were no longer any laws. You jump to the idea that, well, then people can do whatever they want. No. Just because there's no laws doesn't mean there aren't any rules. And so what you want to jump to is the idea that, well, that sounds great, nobody gets in trouble for anything. But the opposite is also possibly true. That not only can you not get in trouble for anything, but you can get in trouble for everything. Because we know we've got police, right? And since we've got the thought police, are there any, because let's think about it. Ooh, here we go. We're gonna dip our toe in the level 3 water, and you're like, whoa. We have laws, right? Laws that are meant to do what? Protect us. From other people. From each other. We are such a civilized society. They are there to keep us in line. But are the laws also there? And then we have police and we have people to help enforce those laws. But don't those laws exist also to keep those enforcing the laws in line?
So they have outlines of what they can and cannot do.
Exactly. Police officers just can't do whatever it is they want to do, right? We've heard many examples, you always, not always, but you hear examples in the news of police officers and law enforcement officials doing things that are not within their jurisdiction. So laws are not there to protect us, not only from other civilians, but also they're there to protect us from the people who are there to enforce the laws, right? And if you don't have any laws, but you still have enforcement, guess what you can do? If I'm a thought police, and I think you've committed a thought crime, guess what? I'm right. Period. End of conversation. So that's the irony, is that nothing was illegal since there were no longer any laws. That's true. That statement is true. And you think that that's really positive. You guys jumped to it. But you didn't think about the flip side, that it could also potentially be negative for these people. Because if there's no laws, there's nothing to govern me as a enforcer of the rules. I can do whatever I want. If I think you stole, I'm right. I'm right all the time.
In the United States, we have laws that protect freedom.
Careful, you're going level 3. You're going type 3. Be careful. No, go ahead. Sorry.
We have laws here that protect our freedoms, like our amendment rights and everything. But here, they don't have any laws that would protect our freedom, so it's just whatever.
It's one of those things where you think on the surface this is great because you don't have to do anything, but you still need people to keep the order. And if you don't have laws, then those people don't have anything to govern them. They can do whatever they want when it comes to them keeping order. And so that's where the irony comes into play. Does that help? You see that?
So the problem is that we don't have laws, but we do have people keeping order.
Are you okay? Now, are we on a type 2 or a type 3 thinking here? Are we talking in the book, or are you still bringing it out to society?
I'm talking in the book.
Say that one more time.
We don't have laws, but we do have people keeping order in the society.
Right. Because guess what? Are there rules? There are rules. Wouldn't call them so much laws, but they're rules. Can those rules change? Whenever they want them to. As dictated by Big Brother, whomever that may be. You know, you could make this a level 3 or type 3 type of question. And this is where you would go and find situations where you had law enforcement officials who essentially acted as thought police would. Because that, I mean, it does exist. And sometimes they're punished and sometimes maybe not. If that makes any sense. How we doing?
Good.
Everybody okay?
You might find stuff funny.
Mind blown.
Now, that's a pretty strong word to use. Why use that word? Why use that diction?
Because it clarifies my point of, I think it's very impressive how the author can fit in so many things that have so much meaning into just, like, he's saying a lot without writing a lot, and how meticulous it seems to be in writing a novel like this.
Our goal is to be able, for you to be able to identify things like this quickly. To be able to read a prose passage and see a juxtaposition example and be like, okay, that's done for a reason. I gotta, maybe that could help me. Or an irony or something along those lines. Take a couple minutes. Stretch. Use the restroom, grab a donut. I'm going to hand back these prompts that you wrote on. Okay? Remember? These golden standards of analytical writing. There's an irony in that. Verbal. A lot of people call it sarcasm. Oh, sorry. Has the length of the days caught up to you yet?
No.
No? I bet you Wednesday you're gonna.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. These are responses. That have been scored in the past. The scores are not on here. Identification letters are. Like, that's what the readers will do, is they'll write identification letters on the prompts. What I want you to do when you come in tomorrow, because we'll talk about these more tomorrow, I want you to have read through, and I want you to figure out which one yours matches up with. Like, mine best is like letter whatever. Everybody got it? So this is letter C. I'm going to give you a few of these, more than a few. What's that?
We always name the writers.
Oh, you're going to make up names for them?
Well, they're based on their handwriting, we
Like
can
what
tell
they
what their
felt
name is.
Like if they're a boy or a girl.
Yeah, you can tell their gender.
Yeah, I see they,
Morgan.
Morgan.
This is a strong female handwriting.
This one has one answer, has H on the back and A on the front. This is H.
What?
That's the entire response.
The heck?
Love it.
That's mine right there.
That's just one.
It says,
Oh my. Hey guys, what is this?
We wrote a thesis in like seclusion called again.
This one's a Kyle. Cole? Yeah, this is Cole.
Here's letter G. Do the best you can. I know handwriting is tricky. And understand, I don't know if she told this to you last year when you guys had to, like, if they can't read it, yeah, like, they can't score it.
She's good with it like that.
I had such a good time on the AP.
Poor Gavin Wick and I had to have a discussion. Now, Gavin, letter D.
even like on the line, but it's
F.
But also have to remember some people write like one,
letter at a
they
time.
don't, or no, they write like
One
one
nice essay.
really nice essay, and then the other ones are really gross. So some of these that are really good, they
This
might
is
have.
like decon. Really.
Now, something else you could do, because I'm giving you, you got 3 more left. As you read these, you've got the scoring, don't you? Throw a score on there. What do you think it is? What do you think the score? Now, I've got the actual scores. I'm just not going to give them to you. 'Cause that'd be too easy.
Can you write down an essay?
If you can, because
Well,
that
like-
person did.
Like, would they take that into consideration, or will they downgrade you if you're wrong?
Right, what on the essay?
No.
What did it say? Read it.
No, names may be incorrect. It's like you mix up a couple characters.
I don't know, because then I don't know. We'll see when we look at the score that way.
Okay.
Because understand that, remember, these are open response, which means you can pick whatever whatever book or novel, that you want to do. You don't have to pick, I don't want to say whatever one you want to do. You don't have to pick what's on the list, but it's got to be of certain literary merit. Who's to say that somebody's not making up? Yeah. Now I will say, here's the last one, I promise. I will say that once I pass this out, 'cause I can't think of pass out and talk at the same time. Okay, I know I gave you quite a few of these, okay? They shouldn't take you too long to read. So I would say go ahead and give them a score and then figure out which one is closest to yours. Like mine equals Morgan. Whatever name you want.
Communist leader, Hitler,
Um,
and Colin Ford.
What's that?
It says the communist leaders, Hitler, and Colin Ford. Are they
Ouch.
comparing the Colin Ford to Hitler?
Which one is that?
B.
College board.
On the open response one, don't be afraid. That's cold. Don't be afraid, and we'll see what the score is on that. Because you've got the criteria.
Yeah, they roasted college board.
Basically,
They said.
inflicted acts of violence. Okay,
Yeah, they could not have gotten a good score since they like roasted college.
so
Don't be afraid to go off on your own path. Because here, if you gotta play the game a little bit. And what I mean by that is, if Romeo and Juliet is one of the things listed, they may read, a multitude of essays that focus on Romeo and Juliet when it comes to answering this question. And there's 2 things. There's just the monotony, like, oh my God, we're reading another Romeo and Juliet one. But they're also, whether they should or not, they're going to start comparing. Like, oh, this was a good one. Well, now I'm reading, even though I should read this one by itself, as opposed to, when it comes to the rubric, they may think, well, this one definitely wasn't as good as that one. And so comparisons can be a hindrance to you. And so if you write on something that isn't on the list, one that's going to perk them up. Oh, we're doing Lord of the Flies. This person's Audrey's writing on Lord of the Flies. And there's less of a chance of that comparison happening. You get my drift? Because now guess what? You're probably one of the only Lord of the Flies person. So, you still got to pick something of literary merit. When they talk about literary merit, something that has some depth to it, as opposed to something that's more surface-based when it comes to stuff that you read. So you got to be careful of what you pick. Okay. So read, score, and then compare to which one best fits you. Easy peasy. Okay. So we've dealt with irony, we've dealt with juxtaposition, we've dealt with anaphora. So there's irony. There's 3 right off the bat. Is there anything else? Where are we at? We've got number 5. Do we need to go back to 3 or 4? Just to make sure, before we get too far ahead. Do we need to go back to 3 or 4? No? Okay. Who wants to go where? Next. What's next?
We go to 12.
Ooh, Tyler wants to jump to 12. We can jump to 12.
I have there's a specific question that I kind of want to ask before we start discussing this. Illusion. Isn't that, I thought illusion was supposed to refer to another different work.
Explain the illusion in chapter 1. Well, let's see what we've got here.
But when I was
Look at
reading
our
it, it just seemed it could also read it in.
illusion.
That's what I had.
I
Brother to Hitler?
I think Nazi Germany is, I know it's
So if I just look up illusion,
Wait, it was there.
It was.
if I go to, so an expression designed to call something to mind without mentioning it explicitly. Literary definition, 'cause that's brief and indirect reference to a person, place, thing, or idea of historical, cultural, literary, or political significance. It does not describe in detail the person or thing to which it refers. So your confusion is what? Like it's gotta be,
I, even after looking it up, I thought it was supposed to refer to specifically like another work of literature. So I guess my problem here
not,
is that.
not specific, because it could be any person, place, or thing,
Okay,
okay?
it can be people.
For example, there is a part in 451 where Captain Beatty has busted Montag. Remember, they show up to burn his house.
Mm-hmm. You rides with it?
Yeah, he's like, "Where are we going?" He doesn't tell him where he's going.
Yeah.
They show up at Montag's house, and you're gonna burn your own house.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part where Beatty, and I can't remember the exact quotation, but he says something along the lines of, "There you go, Montag, you went ahead and you flew too high to the sun and you burnt your damn wings."
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody remember something like
Oh,
that?
Icarus.
And that, so you've got an allusion to Icarus. And so that's when we talk about, like in lit comp, where if you know like biblical and mythological information, like you're able to pick that out. Because you know the story of Icarus, but that's still an allusion. You with me? So what allusion did you find in chapter 1? Or did you think that you found? What did you say, Hitler or?
Can I go?
Knock yourself out, Ryan.
I thought that well, first off, it looked like the party kind of framed Goldenstein and like all of his brotherhood and everything. They kind of blamed them for everything that went wrong. Kind of reminded me of how like in Nazi Germany, the Nazis basically blamed like the Jewish people for everything that was wrong in their country. So it seemed like kind of like Orwell was comparing the party to Nazi Germany and blaming other people for their problems.
But is that a stated allusion?
No.
No. We're looking for a stated allusion. I guess Corey doesn't think he has it.
No.
Anybody think they have it? Go to, nobody? Really, Ashley? I thought you had everything figured out.
No.
Like, do we want to find like the example of where?
Go to page 15. Keep in mind, these questions are in order, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not asking you to jump around.
It's a 2 minute page,
Jump
right?
around.
Page 15.
Jump around. Jump
It's a
up,
girl.
jump up and get down. Go to the middle of page 15. Listen while I read, okay? It was even possible at moments to switch one's hatred this way or that by a voluntary act. Suddenly, by the sort of violent effort with one wrenches one's head away from the pillow in a nightmare, Winston succeeded in transferring his hatred from the face on the screen to the dark-haired girl behind him. Vivid, beautiful hallucinations flashed through his mind. He would flog her to death with a rubber truncheon. He would tie her naked to a stake and shoot her full of arrows like Saint Sebastian. He would ravish her and cut her throat at the moment of climax. Better than before, moreover, he realized why it was that he hated her. He hated her because she was young and pretty and sexless, because he wanted to go to bed with her and would never do so, because around her sweet, supple waist, which seemed to ask you to encircle it with your arm, There was only the odious scarlet sash, aggressive symbol of chastity. What's the allusion? Allusion to, that's stated,
Saint Sebastian.
Saint Sebastian. I'm gonna go on a limb and say you guys don't know who Saint Sebastian is.
I can tell you.
Oh, you could, but you're right, you're wrong.
Mm.
Do you wanna find out? Saint Sebastian. So now you've got the biblical reference. I don't know, did we go to Wikipedia?
It has citations. You could check the citations.
It could. Was an early Christian saint and martyr. According to traditional belief, he was killed during the Roman Emperor Diocletian's persecution of Christians. He is commonly depicted in art and literature tied to a post or tree and shot with arrows. Rescued and healed by the, let's see, shortly afterwards he went to Disa St. Sebastian Martyr, the first spoken by the 4th century Bishop Ambrose of Milan. Sealed his faith, but it was detected. For supposed betrayal, he commanded him to be led to the field and there to be bound to a stake with certain archers from which shoot arrows. The archer shot him until he's full of arrows as an urchin. He's full of pricks and he was left alone there for dead. So a martyr. And I guess if we, early Christian saint and martyr.
So maybe how Julia is like sticking to chastity.
Yeah, no kidding.
Saint Sebastian was a Praetorian guard in the service of Emperor Diocletian of Rome. Although he was equipped.
I don't know what's in there.
That's a little intro music.
No kidding. It's very dramatic.
So what I'm getting from this is that Saint Sebastian was like a Christian martyr, and then if Winston wants to basically reenact Saint Sebastian with Julia's the martyr because she's like the anti-sex lead, and then the entire tiger naked and shooter full of arrows thing is a more direct.
This passage is a little disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten that vibe,
Yeah, I got the vibe. First go.
I get like a lot.
Figured
of
that's disturbing. Corey, yeah, I got the vibe. First time.
I get a Law and Order SVU vibe from it right there.
A what?
Law and Order SVU vibe.
See, I don't watch any of those shows.
It's like one of those crimes that he's talking about. That would show up on there.
I think SUV, I think. What is it, SVU?
SVU,
See, I think
special
that's-
SVU.
Not SUV, not sports utility
It's
vehicle.
like a mob car.
Mom.
Saint Sebastian, you're right, we're dealing with a martyr, and who's probably tied and being, killed for what?
Having a
Being
Christian.
Christian.
Having a Christian faith. And so there's pleasure in that. As weird as that may sound, and before we bring it back into the book, what could be the pleasure in that? You're thinking, what pleasure? You're dying. Yes, but
You're trying to say the college.
it's
That
for your
you
beliefs.
want,
Yeah, it's for your beliefs.
Ryan touched
With
And that's
with the
what-
ideal that yes, my physical life will no longer exist. I won't physically be able, but spiritually, it's like when you see people on their deathbed and they're at peace, and almost looking forward. And so there's a happiness there, even though physically what's happening to him is bad. And so what we're doing with is now what are we doing? What word are we using? What word are we referring to? The negative of death, positive juxtaposition. Now we're juxtaposing those two feelings together. As he's describing this, he would tie her naked to a stake and shoot her full of arrows like Saint Sebastian. It's pleasure from what? pleasure from. If Saint Sebastian is drawing pleasure from death, so pleasure from pain, isn't he talking about doing the same thing? Right? Vivid, beautiful hallucinations. And notice the diction. Man, I'm drawing left and right. Vivid, beautiful hallucinations flashed through his mind. He would flog her to death with a rubber truncheon. You guys want to know what a truncheon is?
I have no idea.
Let's look and see what the truncheon is. Why? Because we can. Hopefully, truncheon. Short, thick stick carries a weapon by a police officer.
I like those.
There you go.
I remember looking it up, but then I forgot what it was.
He would flog her to death with a rubber truncheon. He would tie her naked to a stake and shoot her full of arrows like Saint Sebastian. He would ravish her and cut her throat at the moment of climax. Is this where it really starts to get disturbing?
Yeah.
Because it's very heavy sexually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Better than before, moreover, he realized why it was that he hated her. He hated her because she was so young and pretty and sexless, because he wanted to go to bed with her and would never do so. So it's almost like he doesn't hate her, he hates what she represents. He hates what he can't have.
But it's ironic because later he does anyways. He throws his big fit about it, and then they just have sex later on.
So right, this is ironic. Notice the term drop you just did. And so that's when it comes to the analogy. And of course, when we talk about explain the illusion, that's what we're talking about. Pleasure from pain, the juxtaposition, how he feels that. Okay? Does that help you, Tyler?
Yeah.
Okay, what other ones? What other ones? Do we need to go back? You made a pretty big jump from 5 to 12. I don't want to leave anything behind. She says with a hint of indecision. Oh, syntax! Come on, you guys are syntax wizards, right?
Just was there.
Yeah, just
What is the effect of the syntax in Winston's journal entry for April 4th, 1984? Well, I believe that is on page 89.
I just don't know if I pulled the right thing out.
Last night to the flicks, all war films. One very good one of a ship full of refugees being bombed somewhere in the Mediterranean. Audience much amused by shots of great, huge, fat man trying to swim away with a helicopter after him. First you saw him wallowing along in the water like a porpoise, then you saw him through the helicopter's gun sights. Then he was full of holes, and the sea round him turned pink, and he sank as suddenly as though the holes had led in the water. Audience shouting with laughter when he sank. Then you saw a lifeboat full of children with a helicopter hovering over him. There was a middle-aged woman, might have been a Jewess, sitting up in the bow with a little boy of about 3 years old in her arms. The little boy screamed with fright and hiding his head between her breasts as if he was trying to burrow right into her, and the woman putting her arms around him and comforting him, although she was blue with fright herself, all the time covering him up as much as possible, as if he thought her arms could keep the bullets off him. Then the helicopter planted a 20-kilo bomb, and among them terrific flash, and the boat went all to matchwood. Then there was a wonderful shot of a child's arm going up, right up with the air, into the air, a helicopter with a camera in its nose. Must have followed it up, and there was a lot of applause from the party seats, but a woman down in the parole part of the house suddenly started kicking up a fuss and shouting. They didn't oughter have showed it not in front of the kids. They didn't, it ain't right, not in front of kids. It ain't until the police turned her out. I don't suppose anything happened to her. Nobody cares what the parole say. Typical parole reaction, they never.
It gets really.
Rushed.
Syntax. Say it again.
He's rushed. Like he's like trying to get all his thoughts down before either he gets caught or whatever.
Panic.
Did it start rushed?
No.
Grammatical stuff aside.
Oh.
Because we're just focusing on syntax. And so we're just focusing on word choice. And so when it asks what's the effect of the syntax,
Because the way he's writing, maybe he's rushed, but he's also not using proper grammar. So I thought maybe it shows how, like, they're not really taught how to, like, write. Like, it's not something that's encouraged in society because they don't really encourage the free expression of writing anyway, so they don't really teach you how to write.
so you're looking at it as more of another social setting
Yeah,
definition.
yeah.
I can see that. Did we have any other type of effect?
It-
Uh-huh.
It kind of clues me into Winston's state of mind during this time. Like, at first, it's a pretty passable syntax for a diary entry, but then as you get closer, you get sentences that aren't capitalized, you get really long run-on sentences, and then towards the end, it just kind of becomes like a string of words about what they said at the theater and everything. So it just kind of makes
When it starts to ramble, what's he talking about?
It's talking about like the death scene with the helicopter and then the parole woman.
So
Yeah,
you
the-
find it interesting that when it gets to the most negative part of his description is when he begins to ramble. And you said fast, right, Audrey? Like he's talking fast. Do you think that this, like if we talk about what's the effect of this syntax, does this tell us about Winston?
Yes. He, like, doesn't agree with what they're doing.
Even though he doesn't say it, even though he doesn't come out and say it, does the use of syntax show that he's frustrated with what they're showing?
Yes.
So now we're dealing with, okay, now I've got syntax, and we're dealing with structure. Because of that, especially the lack of structure, he's becoming more and more frustrated. Now I'm dealing with a characterization definition. Which, once again, at the same time, I could also deal with that, like what Grace said, is that social setting connection too. So we've connected to a couple of things. He truly writes how he feels. It's like when you're upset and you text, what do you do? When you're texting someone you're upset with them, what do you do?
All caps.
All caps. His is just rambling, it's just become thoughts. What's that?
Or his face, I was like, he doesn't text.
I don't go all caps. There's an exclamation mark at the end. Oh, good.
Just an exclamation.
Maybe two.
What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Speak up now.
Number 9.
Number 9. Why does Goldstein's influence never seem to decline? Why does the government ever capture him?
He's not real.
What?
He's not real. Just like Big
What?
Brother. Big Brother's not real. He's
Oh.
What?
What do you mean Big Brother's not real? Like you say Goldstein's not real.
Well, good.
Define real.
He was made
He's
up.
not physically a person.
He was made up.
Yes.
Like how Winston made up that one, I don't remember his name, but he made up that one character and
Oh.
switched him out with the other past made up character.
Oh, when he was changing
Yeah.
stuff?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
It starts
fun.
with an O.
Did you like that, John?
Ology or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, all added.
It starts with an O. It's,
I don't know.
it's something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me that Goldstein's not real.
Right.
Okay, what is that? I'm trying to
So-
connect that statement to this.
Like the government made him up, so the attention's not on the government anymore, it's all on Goldstein.
Okay.
I'm trying to like
How I saw
explain
it
it
was like the government knows that within each person they each have their doubts about the government, so they embodied those doubts as Goldstein, and in order to make him as the enemy, they're going to think, well, if they think similar to Goldstein, that's going to be bad, and they're going to avert from that.
It's like they
He's
have
like-
to give, like giving a face to the cause.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
like a face of the ideology against the party.
And then like they put him in 2 minutes. Hey, it's just like reassuring the people's hatred against the figurehead.
Because it's
So-
kind of like if they think that they can make them hate the person.
It's
then
almost
they
like
hate
you
the
guys
cause.
are trying to answer the second question.
So
Why does the government ever capture him? Because the government needs him.
Mhm.
As a scapegoat.
The Goldstein actually works for the government.
And so if his influence never declines, it's because the all-powerful government supports his influence.
They need him.
Why does Goldstein's influence never seem to decline? So you're telling me that his influence how? Because when you think of Goldstein, he's the opposition. You would think his influence would be towards rebelling against Big Brother, but actually his influence, when we're looking at influence, what are we talking about here? Is it the government's intended influence for him? Or his influence as depicted by the government?
I think option B.
Why does Goldstein's influence never seem to decline? Is it because the government keeps bringing him up and keeps using him as their figurehead for? So now we're dealing with, here we go, we're dealing with a juxtaposition of a character whose perception is against us, but in reality, it's working for us. It's working for us. Could you level 3 that? Could you type 3 that?
Probably could. Have to think of an example though.
Maybe not somebody who's completely, possibly fake. Now keep in mind, we don't know if Goldstein's fake or not. But do you think that there has been, has our society or our government ever used the enemy
Well,
in a way to help?
if we think about our own American history, like for 9/11, we look at like Islamic terrorists as kind of a reason to band together and fight against those forces,
Who's the figurehead?
like Osama bin Laden.
Did we need a figurehead? Do we need that one person?
Yeah.
Gives you
Yeah, it gives you like,
a reason.
it's a lot easier to say our enemy is this guy than to say the enemy is a bunch of guys out in the Middle East.
It would have been hard just to pick it up and start fighting them if all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're just going to start fighting Islamic terrorists, but since they had the figurehead of Osama bin Laden and 9/11 happened, then they could fight.
Is it a lot easier for us to focus on one person?
Mm-hmm.
How simple, and think, in all honesty, is that simple-minded? Is that a simple-minded way to think? It's too hard for me to think about this, but you know what? I can really get behind this. And before Osama bin Laden, because right now it's more, since Osama bin Laden's dead, who is it?
It's ISIS.
But not a person, but a group.
That's why everyone's freaking out over it all the time.
Well, I think our attention more turns towards Korea right now. Kim Jong-un would be the
Name drop.
If you go back through history, before Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, focus. In the 80s, when we weren't physically at war, there were still some, Muammar Gaddafi, who was Libyan, was a focus. Gorbachev was a focus, because he's running Soviet Russia. He's running the Soviet Union. Even Cuba, to a certain degree, if you go back to like the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's hard for us to get behind an opposing cause as it is an opposing person and group, because it's just easier for us. And so, you can imagine, we're going to use, it's like, I'm going to use a Star Wars reference because I'm a dork. If I want people to join the Jedi Academy, who am I going to use? Let's fight Darth Vader, right? Help us take Darth Vader down. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about using the enemy as a recruiting, as a rhetorical device? Think that's right to do? Join the armed forces to help us fight, fill in the blank.
Is that the point of the armed forces though?
I feel like it works.
To fight a specific person or to fight against a
I
cause?
think it works, people just don't notice. Yeah.
What's that?
I think like it works, but people just don't think about
Is
it.
it right?
Yeah.
Is that right to do? To focus like, hey, I want you to join because we need you to
No.
fight.
I think if we think strictly in the military, I think it kind of, I'm not a military like expert, so correct me,
That surprises me.
but I think it distorts kind of the purpose of the military, which is to protect the nation and whoever the military serves. So, saying that you should join so we can fight this guy or this guy, is making it seem like the military is more for attacking them instead of protecting us.
I think it almost distorts their motto. Like protect and serve, not to fight against this one person.
I don't know if I should go here. Should I go here?
Yeah,
Let's go,
sure.
let's go.
Does religion do the same thing?
Yes.
I'm going to promote the religion by using Satan, the devil, whatever you want to call it. Right? I'm going to promote the positive by emphasizing the negative. So what you're dealing with, so what you're seeing here, if we type through this, what they're doing with Goldstein, that's been done for years. Focusing on the positive to enhance the negative, or focusing on the negative to enhance the positive. Right or wrong. There's one other that came in my head, I can't remember. What's interesting here, like you talked about Goldstein's not real, and the Big Brother aren't real. I'm going to blow your minds this morning. Who's to say they're not real? Because is real in the mind of each individual? Because remember, these people, it's not just a thing for them, and you've read the book, it's not just for them to say, it's not just enough for them to say that you think 2 + 2 = 5. It's to believe it. And if you believe it, is it true? Is it real? So if you believe Goldstein exists, does Goldstein exist?
That's where the book gets uncomfortable.
It's just like he
Because the
says,
question
you'll
is
never
a
know.
perception of reality.
Huh? Because don't they show clips of Goldstein and show like things that have happened and footage and coverage, right? If you type through that, this is a good, like the 2-minute hate, if you want to look at an illusion, it's almost like the 2-minute hate you could look at within our own media today. Because news outlets have a lot of power with how they inform us about things. And who's to say what they're showing? And the way that they show it to us is factual. Does that make any sense? So now you can just question everything about reality.
Like Star Trek. Has everyone seen Star Trek?
See what?
Starstruck.
Oh my
They
gosh.
take a picture of this like guy, and it's really just like an innocent picture, but they make him like look bad. Like they take the picture out of context
Sure.
of what he was doing, and so he looks like a bad guy, but really he was not.
That's a good movie.
Whomever has the power of dispensing information has a lot of power. And dispersing that information. That's why it's almost like you don't know how things, like when you read about stuff in history books, you're not quite, did it really happen that way? Is there objectivity, subjectivity? Did it really happen that way?
History teachers always tell us that, as Mr. Munson and Mr. Hutchins always told us that, like, they don't have textbooks because it only provides one point of view.
Huh? Like it seems like when you study World War II, you study in a way that makes us look really good, but you don't really talk about and study, well, what about the Japanese internment camps in California? Well, that doesn't make us look too good, so we're going to leave that out. We're going to be selective with our historical account.
The Japanese like that.
Welcome to AP. Any other questions? Any other questions today?
15.
Huh?
15.
We already did 15.
15? No, we didn't.
Oh, we did 12, I'm sorry. My bad. What's the rhetorical effect of the word voluptuously in chapter 1? Anybody go and look and find that? I think that's 18. Now, just take a look at the word And that's something that if they ask you about, like this would be, if I'm looking at 15, this is a question they would ask you as part of a multiple choice, right? Here's the passage. What is the rhetorical effect of the word voluptuously? My suggestion is, before you look at it within the context of the passage, think about just the definition. Like when you think voluptuously, what comes to mind? Anybody?
I had to look it up, I don't remember.
It's to feel pleasure.
Yes.
What's that?
Voluptuously means to feel pleasure.
Yeah, like do something with like luxury or pleasure.
Okay. Like when I think voluptuously, I think sexual. Is that right? Does that sound about right? I think female. I think appearance. I think like dress. I think makeup. I think lips. For some reason I think lips. Does that make sense? Or am I losing you? Like the lips are voluptuous and full and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is creeping me out now. But if I look up, and here's the thing, you're not going to know. That's what I'm doing is what you have to do if you get a question like this. Because you're not going to have a dictionary to refer to. You're like, okay, I know that word, and in your mind, when you think of that word, what do you picture? And that's the definition you got to go off of a woman, curvaceous and sexually attractive, or of a relation characterized by luxurious sensual pleasure. Okay. So what's the rhetorical effect? Now, rhetorical means what? Oh, come on. What's rhetorical mean? It's not just saying what's the effect, it's saying what's the rhetorical effect. What does rhetorical mean? What is rhetoric?
It's like the techniques used in writing to make us think what the author wants us to think.
So it's persuasive.
Yes.
Rhetoric is persuasive. Like when you think ethos, pathos, logos, you guys, right? That's all rhetoric. I'm going to use emotion, I'm going to use statistics, I'm going to use credibility. That's all rhetoric. So when they say what's the rhetorical effect, there's a persuasive, they're trying to persuade you. So if we look at 15, no, go to page 18. Winston roused himself and sat up straighter. He let out a belch. The gin was rising from his stomach. His eyes refocused on the page. He discovered that while he sat helplessly musing, he had also been writing as though by automatic action, and it was no longer the same cramped, awkward handwriting as before. His pen had slid voluptuously over the smooth paper, printing in large, neat capital letters, down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother, so on and so forth. His pen had slid voluptuously. What's the rhetorical effect of the word voluptuously in chapter 1? So this is a multiple choice question. What kind of answer are you looking for?
Makes it sound like Winston's taking like some sort of pleasure from speaking his mind down with Big Brother. So it makes, if we're thinking rhetorical effect, it makes us feel like
It persuades us that
the down with Big Brother and the expression of that thought is a very good, pleasurable idea to have. It's promoting the idea of down with Big Brother.
keeps doing the thumbs up. It's good. We're all good. For whom? Within the text. Within the text.
It's for Winston.
Right. He voluptuously wrote, or what was it? The pen voluptuously slid.
The smooth.
That what he's writing, he takes pleasure in. Without coming out and saying, hey, he really wants to write this. No, his pen, and it's almost sexual, it's more than just, I believe it. It's a very emotional attachment to what it is that he's writing, without coming out and saying that. So he's not just writing to write it. He truly believes. And it persuades us that he believes. That's where we get the rhetorical effect. That, because voluptuous, that's a pretty emotionally charged, sensual word, and I'm trying to think of like the five, like it's very strong when it comes to the five senses and touch and things like that. So it's not just something that he's writing, and he's all in. He's all in when it comes to him not agreeing with things. What else? What else? Are we doing okay with all this? Am I losing you? Are we lagging? Is our mind starting to lose focus? No? What other questions? And we're just dealing with part 1.
Like section 1 or chapter 1?
Well, remember, there was that Roman numeral.
Right.
Just focus on that Roman numeral. I asked you, and we're on, let's see, we're on 15, so like, I guess we would go to number 2, wouldn't we? Right? Were there any others with 1 that you wanted to look at?
Number
Ashley?
11.
What's that?
Number 11.
So number 11. What is the source of the power behind the hatred that the viewers feel? What is the source of the power? And let me just make sure that we're clear.
That was kind of odd wording in my opinion.
What is, and this is, we're back to Goldstein, aren't we? What's the source of the power behind the hatred the viewers feel? Let's go back. To where we are. We were back on 15:12, right? The page 15. Actually, go to page 13. Before the hate had proceeded for 30 seconds, uncontrollable exclamations of rage were breaking out from half the people in the room. The self-satisfied, sheep-like face on the screen and the terrifying power of the Eurasian army behind it were too much to be borne. Besides, the sight or even the thought of Goldstein produced fear and anger automatically. What's that show? Just like what I read, what's that show? Even before we get to answer this question. Has the 2 minute hate started yet?
Barely.
Barely.
So
before the hate had proceeded for 30, like we're 30 seconds in, what's going on?
people just have like an automatic reaction to Goldstein.
Yeah.
The revved up.
It's like an instinctual thing.
Okay. So it's become inherent within it. And notice the strong, what's a strong diction choice that makes us realize this right off the bat?
Uncontrollable rage.
Automatically.
Rage is a strong word. Besides sight or even the thought of Goldstein produced fear and anger automatically. He was an object of hatred more constant in either Eurasia or East Asia. Since when Oceania was at war with one of these powers, it was generally at peace with the other. But what was strange was that although Goldstein was hated and despised by everybody, although every day and 1,000 times a day on platforms, on the telescreen, in newspapers and books, his histories were refuted, smashed, ridiculed, held up to the general gaze for the pitiful rubbish that they were. In spite of all this, his influence never seemed to grow less. And we've already dealt with the answer to that question. Always there were fresh dupes waiting to be seduced by him. A day never passed when spies and saboteurs acting under his directions were not unmasked by the thought police. Did the government need those rebels? Why would the government need those rebels?
To show that they're on the job doing the right thing,
Well,
getting the guys.
That you're going to get caught,
Yeah.
but that you also have people willing to rebel. Because if you don't have people willing to rebel, if you just got Goldstein and nobody rebels, with Goldstein, does that make Goldstein less effective? Huh?
Later in the book, Julie explains like where all this untapped energy comes from, and it's that the party suppresses their instinct for sex, and the outcome is used towards enraging the people against the enemies. And how Winston describes it is he hated her because she was young and pretty and sexless, because he wanted to go with her, but he wouldn't. So they have all this untapped energy, but the party uses it towards Goldstein and the enemies. How I saw it.
Is it safe to say that there's a lot of in subconscious? You guys know what I mean by subconscious? What's that word? What's that mean?
Like,
What's subconscious mean?
it enters your mind, but you don't really like actively think about it.
It's back here, right? I talk about this with 451 too. It's like you think of Guy Montag. Remember, had he, before his situation with Clarice and the woman who burnt herself in her own home, had he been collecting books before that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that vent.
Remember the
Yeah.
vent? Like he's had a subconscious questioning for a while. It took that woman to essentially kill herself for that to move from back here to up here. You with me? You've got a lot of people that are unhappy. And that's why, and that's another reason in 451, you've got a lot of people who commit suicide. Right? Because they've got subconscious unhappiness that they don't know how to deal with it. Because it hasn't moved up here yet. And so what you've got in 1984 is you've got a lot of people with a lot of pent-up energy. And you said it was what, sexual? Could it be more than sexual? Like, not, like you want to go sex, is there any other, in what other ways would they be unhappy?
I mean, the government they live under oppresses everything they do. Like, you can't do anything fun. You can't do anything that would give you any other type of enjoyment.
The lack of food and supplies. Because he was talking about the Poles, how they get all angry about pants when they have this whole bigger issue to look at.
Hey, since you brought that up, what's the irony of the proles?
Even though they're like supposed to be like poor and down, and they're actually probably, if you were in 1984, you'd probably want to be a prole instead of a part.
Right, because the government doesn't mess with the proles, do they?
Yeah, don't spy on them.
No, leave them alone.
Yeah.
Like, man, sign me up. But for these people who have these aggressions, and it says, what is the source of the power behind the hatred that the viewers feel? The source
It's like their pent up anger and sadness of being like oppressed and everything they can't do. That's kind of
Like how they subconsciously
it's like
feel
their
about the party,
their
they're using
subconscious
that
troubles.
towards
it's all about channeling.
Yeah.
What do I mean? It's all about channeling.
They take out, like they're angry because of all of these things, but they take it out on the 2 minutes hate.
They take it on Goldstein.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you've seen The Purge, right?
Yeah.
Or you've heard of it, like the movie?
Yeah.
Has anyone not heard of what the plot line is of that, like, is to that one? You haven't? So The Purge is, and it's an interesting concept. It's a government dictated, I don't even want to call it, like if I use the term holiday,
It's fun.
yeah. Now I've got a juxtaposing title for it. Use that a lot today, Grace. What they do to curb crime is they say, okay, there's a 12 hours?
24?
No, I don't think it's
It's
24.
12.
I think it's
It's
12. It's like an overnight.
Yeah.
So there's a 12-hour time period where all laws, you can do whatever you want. You can kill, steal, do whatever you want. And what's happened is that because of this purge, of this 12-hour time where you can just do whatever you want, crime has been greatly reduced. Because people get it all out of their system. Which is take it out of the movie. It's an interesting idea. I mean, not that I agree with it, don't get me wrong. But it's like, it's something you're like, really? It's almost like that's what, 2 minutes. These people get 2 minutes to express their displeasure. Not their displeasure at Big Brother, or at the thought police, or at the government, because of everything that it's to take that and channel it towards their enemy, when we know the real enemy is the government. So Big Brother isn't just relying on fear. Like, hey, we're gonna keep people in line because they're gonna be scared of us. They're truly making it seem like what they do is okay. They really want people to believe that what the government is doing isn't actually bad. And so, but they figured out one way to do that is to channel any type of negative, because they're realizing there's going to be negative energy. Let's channel it towards an enemy. And so when you say, what is the source of the power behind the hatred? Well, really the source is the government. Because it's the stuff that they're doing to the people, but it's just where they're allowing people to channel that hatred and displeasure. You getting all this, Lily?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got a little dim headlights to look like, oh my god. My clock's still there? Thanks for checking. How we doing? Good? Beneficial? Too long? Did we take too long with that today?
No.
I wish this class, like when we get to the school year, 43 minutes is not going to be
No, it's not enough.
long enough. But we'll get it done. Okay, so tomorrow, here's what I want. Because I want to take a look at those passages. We will take time to, I want to take time to see what you guys think about the passages off of the prompt that I gave you. And then I still want to talk about, identify your questions that you want to look at for Roman numeral 2. There's 3 of them, right? Okay, focus on Roman numeral 2. And I'll do more of a balance tomorrow. But I really wanted to get into these today. Questions, comments, concerns? By the end of, by the time Wednesday's class is over, I will have had the quizzes graded and back to you. So far, I'm going to give you scores on the packets of questions and those quizzes. That's what we've got so far, just so you know.